It is football happy hour on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Chris Hassel, and we are going to give you reasons why a bunch of different teams could end up winning the Super Bowl this season. The Super Bowl winners of late have been among the favorites entering the season, though the Bengals nearly won at 150-1 last season. Chiefs went to the AFC title game the year before they won it. The Bucs, of course, got Tom Brady and went on to win it in his first year there. And the Rams went out and got Matthew Stafford, added him to a bunch of stars, especially on the defensive end, and Sean McVay gets his first Super Bowl championship. The favorites right now are the Buffalo Bills at 7-1, followed by the Bucs at 8-1, then the Chiefs at 9-1. Right now we're going to focus on the AFC contenders with a man who was heartbroken at the end of this past Super Bowl. John Breech, big old Bengals fan. His dad played for them back in the day. Breech, of course, can be heard on the Pick Six podcast. You're going to give us reasons why some of these contenders may end up winning the Super Bowl this season. Let's start with the Super Bowl favorites, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Chris, I think the first reason here is obvious, and it is Josh Allen. You just mentioned that list of past few Super Bowl winners, and they all kind of have one big thing in common. To win in this era of NFL football, you have to have a franchise quarterback, whether that was Matthew Stafford last season, Tom Brady 2 seasons ago, Patrick Mahomes 3 seasons ago. You have to have a big guy who knows how to play football behind center, and Josh Allen has proven he can do that. You know, there were so many questions about him. The Bills got grilled when they drafted him, but since then, he has just been getting better every year. They've been to the playoffs in 3 of the 4 seasons he's been under center, been to the postseason in 3 straight years. We've seen him in the wild card round, the conference title game. We saw the crazy game against the Chiefs where they're 13 seconds away from getting the AFC championship. So Josh Allen definitely is a big reason why the Bills would win the Super Bowl if it happens. Another reason I like the Bills is their defense. It should be better than it was last year, which doesn't even seem possible. This is a team that had arguably the best defense in football last season, and now you're adding Von Miller, so you got some pass rushing help. You get Tre'Davious White back on the field. Tre'Davious White missed the final 5 games of the season. He didn't play in the playoffs because he tore his ACL during the middle of the year, and that was a huge loss because White is one of the best corners in the NFL. So now you have a shutdown corner on one side of the ball, and you might have another one because you just spent a first-round pick on Kaiir Elam. And then you look at the rest of that defense with Greg Rousseau, Jordan Poyer, Tremaine Edmonds. It is absolutely loaded. And then the third reason why they are a very, very good pick to win the Super Bowl is because they filled all the holes they had on their roster. Look, this team is talented from top to bottom. There were not many holes on this roster. If they needed to do anything, it was add an offensive lineman. They did that during the offseason with Roger Saffold. Add a little bit of pass rushing help. They did that with Von Miller. They did that with Shaq Lawson. Then you look what they did in the draft. They potentially got a starting corner, a starting punter. Maybe that will put them over the edge there. But the Bills made a lot of smart moves this offseason, and those are 3 reasons why I think they can win the Super Bowl.
So if they filled their biggest holes, what would you say is their biggest question mark now going into a season where they are the ones that everybody's going to be gunning for as the favorites in the AFC?
I think just getting their running backs a little bit more involved. I think the Bills know that is an issue. Look, you have Devin Singletary, but they went out and spent a second-round pick on James Cook because their running game has been the one thing that just really hasn't been a big part of their offense. If they could get that going, man, then that offense becomes more scary than it was last year.
First time in a few years that the Kansas City Chiefs aren't the favorites to win the Super Bowl. They're the second betting favorite in the AFC, as John Breech gives us reasons why each of the AFC favorites could end up winning the Super Bowl. With the Chiefs, it seems pretty easy because we've seen it before, right?
Yeah, this one boils down to one thing for me. It's Patrick Mahomes. If you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, you are automatically a Super Bowl contender. You are automatically in the conversation to win the Super Bowl, and it is a very good reason to pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. You just look what he's done since he took over the starting job. They've been to 4 straight conference title games. They've been to 2 Super Bowls already. And so Patrick Mahomes just knows what to do. He's arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Sure, he lost one of his biggest weapons this offseason with the trade of Tyreek Hill. But, the Chiefs reloaded. They added a receiver in the draft. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They signed a couple other receivers. So it's not like Patrick Mahomes isn't going to have anybody to throw to. And he still has Travis Kelce there. So when you have the best quarterback in the NFL on your roster, you absolutely can win the Super Bowl. And also, Andy Reid. He's another reason. Andy Reid has proven that he can adjust as well as any coach in the NFL. Whether it's, we talked 20 years ago, the guy led the Eagles to 4 straight conference title games. Football's changed a lot in 20 years. Andy Reid adjusts. He's taken the Chiefs to 4 straight conference title games, and I think he will be fine without Tyreek Hill. He is one of the smartest offensive minds in the NFL. He'll come up with something. He'll keep the Chiefs offense moving along, and I think that with Reid and Mahomes, that combo gives the Chiefs a great chance. And finally, look, the Chiefs have done it before. When you look at all the contenders, this is a team that's been to 2 Super Bowls in the past 4 years. They have the experience. I know you hear a lot about the big game experience, and a lot of players will tell you that's true. You get to the playoffs, and, some teams, they choke. That's what they do. The Chiefs don't generally do that. Maybe people will argue they did because they blew a huge lead against the Bengals in the conference title game. But this is a team with playoff experience, Super Bowl experience, and that's why they are a good pick to win the Super Bowl.
Is there more pressure on the Chiefs or less pressure now? They're not the favorites to win it all, but you've been to the AFC Championship game 4 straight times. You have 1 Super Bowl to show for it. They seemingly had a window to put together potentially even a dynasty here in the NFL, and we sit here with just 1 Super Bowl. I know it is a Super Bowl, and they've had a lot of success, but don't you think the pressure's mounting a bit?
That's a great question. It does feel like there should be more pressure, but if I'm the Chiefs, I view it as there's less pressure because this is the one year where you're not the favorite. Hey, let's put all the pressure on the Buffalo Bills. And if anything, the Chiefs can kind of play this year with a chip on their shoulder because they can say, whoa, we've been to the conference title game 4 straight years. We've been to 2 of the past 4 Super Bowls, and we're not the favorites in the AFC. That's ridiculous. The Chiefs never get to play the underdog role, and they actually get to play it this year. And so I think they should embrace that, and that might actually help them.
Okay, so when we're looking at AFC teams, the Bills, the favorites to win it all, 7-1. Then it's the Chiefs at 9-1, real close. But then it's a pretty big drop-off. There's a bunch of NFC teams before the next AFC favorite. That would be the LA Chargers at 16-1, a team that may have benefited the most of any team this offseason.
Yeah, when you look at the Chargers, my goodness, behind the Bills, it feels like they have the best top-to-bottom roster in the AFC. And the 3 reasons I think they could win the Super Bowl is, number 1, their defense is loaded. Their defense was already good, and then they went out and they traded for Khalil Mack. So now you're adding one of the best defenders in the NFL. You're putting him on your roster onto an already loaded defense, and so that is a huge move. And if that's not enough, you go out and you sign J.C. Jackson. So now you have a shutdown corner to add with Khalil Mack. And let's not forget, this is a defense that already has Joey Bosa and Derwin James and Asante Samuel. I mean, this is absolutely loaded. Brandon Staley is a smart defensive mind. He was with the Rams before he was with the Chargers, and so we know how good he is running a defense. And so I think this defense could be great, one of the best in the NFL in 2022. And you know what? It's not just their defense that's loaded. Their offense is loaded. They have Justin Herbert, who has only gotten better. Sure, he has not made it to the playoffs yet in his 2-year career, but this feels like the year where he can finally make that happen. Then you look around the rest of that offense. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, as far as 1-2 punches go, that might be the best in the NFL, probably top 3. You have Austin Eckler back there. And so they even improved the offensive line a little bit. It was a disaster 2 years ago. It was good last season. It might be very good this season, and that's what they need. And then finally, I feel like the Chargers are going to play this entire year with a chip on their shoulder. We all saw how their season ended in 2022. It was a painful loss. Overtime to the Raiders, where the winner moved on and the loser went home. And so I think that is going to burn in their head the entire offseason and they're going to go into 2022 hungry. And so I really like the Chargers there. And plus, they just want to get rid of that reputation of the Chargers can't win the big game. That feels like something they want to get off their plate. So they're going to be hungry. And I do think the Chargers absolutely can contend to win the Super Bowl.
And yeah, even more of a chip on their shoulder, you would think, because they're in that town with the LA Rams who just won the Super Bowl. And a lot of maybe undecided fans probably going to the Rams side because they are the winners right now. The Chargers here to say, no, we have a really good team too. So they're 16-1 along with the Broncos. So that's 3 of the top 4 teams in the AFC odds-wise are in the same division. Why can the Broncos win it all?
Well, this one for me is 2 words: Russell Wilson. You looked at the Broncos offense last season, it was a disaster. It was mostly because of the quarterback position. And now you know what the Broncos are doing? They are taking a page out of the Rams playbook, out of the Buccaneers playbook. What do the last 2 Super Bowl winners have in common? They added a quarterback. In 2020, it was the Buccaneers obviously signing Tom Brady in free agency. Boom, Brady wins the Super Bowl in his first season with the team. Last year, the Rams pull off that huge trade for Matthew Stafford. Boom, the Rams win a Super Bowl in their first season with Stafford under center. So there's no reason to think that the Broncos can't do that with Russell Wilson. And you look at this offense that Wilson's going to have around him. There's a bunch of guys who can play football. And so Russell Wilson has that pedigree too, that, hey, look, he won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. So I think that is obviously huge. Number 2, they have a favorable schedule. We don't talk a lot about strength of schedule, but look, the Broncos get to play a last place schedule because they finished in last place last year. And what that means is that they get to play the Panthers and Jets this year. That is 2 games that the Chiefs don't get to play, that the Chargers don't get to play, that the Raiders don't get to play. And so when you think about the fact that each of these division teams play 14 of their 17 games are the exact same, when your 2 different games, 2 of your 3, are the Jets and the Panthers, that gives you a huge advantage over a team like, say, the Chiefs, who have to play the Bills and the Buccaneers instead of the Jets and the Panthers. And then finally, I think this is the season where the Broncos offense is finally going to catch up to their defense. Look, you look at the offense last year. I mentioned it with the Russell Wilson, but it just was a disaster. It was Drew Lock. It was whoever was playing quarterback just couldn't get that offense going ever. You look at the Broncos, they scored 14 points or less in 7 games last season. They went 0-7 in those games. You can't win the NFL if you can't score points. And so they are going to be able to score points with Russell Wilson. And when you look at who Russell Wilson has, it's Jerry Jeudy, it's Courtland Sutton, it's Javonte Williams, it's Melvin Gordon. This offense feels loaded, and it really feels like one that's going to make the Broncos a Super Bowl contender.
One of those teams that had a negative point differential in the AFC on that list last season was the team that won the AFC. That would be your Cincinnati Bengals. They are at 22-1 to win it all, which is a little bit shorter than the odds they had last season to win it all, 150-1 last year, and they damn near did it.
Yeah, this feels like great value. I might have to go bet the mortgage on the Bengals to get to the Super Bowl, to win it all. But, you know, if you're looking for reasons why they could do it, number 1, they finally brought in some protection for Joe Burrow. We all saw last season Joe Burrow got sacked over 50 times during the regular season. That was the most in the NFL. He set the playoff record for the quarterback who's been sacked the most in the postseason. We saw the last play of Super Bowl 56 where Aaron Donald blew back the offensive line, flustered Burrow, and the Rams win. So the Bengals had to do something, and that's exactly what they did. They bring in Ted Karras at center. They bring in Alex Kappa to play guard. They bring in Lael Collins at right tackle, which I feel like was one of the biggest steals of free agency. So now you have upgraded with 3 new starters on the offensive line. And so we saw what Joe Burrow could do last season when he was under pressure, when he's being flustered all the time. What's going to happen when he actually has time to throw? I mean, this offense could actually take another step forward, which is another reason why I think they could win the Super Bowl, is because they have probably the best receiving trio in the NFL. I said the Chargers are probably, as far as 2 receivers go, in the top 2. But if you go all the way down to 3 receivers and you're looking at trio, the Bengals with T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase, with Tyler Boyd, that is a tough trio to slow down because most teams don't have a secondary that can keep up with all 3 of those guys. And we're adding Hayden Hurst into the mix. The Bengals now have a tight end who will be filling in for C.J. Uzomah, who is now signed with the Jets. And I feel like Hayden Hurst could put up some surprisingly big numbers. And finally, look, this defense surprised a lot of people in 2021 on that push to the Super Bowl. They're bringing back 10 of 11 starters. And so I think that's huge because you saw this defense build chemistry as the season went on. Sure, they gave up 34 points to the Jets early in the season, but as you went week by week by week, the defense just got better and better and better. And you look at what happened in the playoffs, the defense was a big reason why they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. And so, you know, as long as they get things figured out with Jesse Bates, which, hey, they have 2 months to do that, I think they'll be okay. But the fact that this team is bringing back 10 of 11 starters off a defense that was really impressive last season is one of the 3 reasons why I think the Bengals can get back to the Super Bowl and win it this time.
I may have missed it, but did you mention a kicker at all?
I didn't want to go completely homer here, but that was the top reason. And the producer said, we can't pin the Bengals Super Bowl hopes on a kicker.
That's off
Evan
brand,
McPherson.
man. It's off brand. You got to mention the kicker, especially when you're talking Bengals. McPherson, man, he was one of the main reasons why they got there. No doubt about it. John Breech with us here telling us why 5 different teams in the AFC could end up winning the Super Bowl this season. You can hear Breech and company on the Pick Six podcast. We did a Pick Six style program on HQ yesterday. Ryan Wilson hosted. Brady Quinn, Bryant McFadden were there as well. They W&L'd the schedule for all 32 teams. You can find the whole thing on YouTube, on the CBS Sports HQ YouTube page. Brady Quinn getting a lot of heat for what he said about the New York Jets. I think he had them going 0-30 this season. Up next, Jonathan Jones will join us as we flip to the NFC. Why contenders like the Bucs and even Cowboys could end up winning the Super Bowl this season. That's next.
Well, right now it appears the winning formula is go all in and win a Super Bowl. Not that it works every time, but the Bucs did it, of course. And then this past season, crying Odell, and the Rams did it. The Rams getting Odell last season. Of course, they also traded for Matt Stafford last March and then traded for Von Miller midseason. Literally tweeted out at the time, we are all in. And with the guys like Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp in place, they were good to go. However, look, here's the thing. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl. It's even harder to repeat. Only 7 teams have ever done it. The latest, the Patriots, back in 2004 and 2005. Let's welcome in senior NFL writer Jonathan Jones. We're going through some of the NFC teams with the best odds to win the Super Bowl. Let's start with the Rams, and you're going to give a reason why each one of these teams can, in fact, win the Super Bowl there. So why can the Rams repeat and become the 8th franchise to ever repeat as Super Bowl winners?
Well, Amanda, you just mentioned it with the Patriots 03-04. It's really hard to repeat as champions, right? Well, I flip that on its head. I say that the Rams, not only do they know what to do in order to repeat, which teams haven't been able to figure out, they also know what not to do in order to make it to the promised land. And I think that part is really important for them. They have the mental fortitude to not get complacent. And then they also, they made it through a much tougher NFC West last season. So now they have a much easier route to go. So I think that's part of it. I mentioned the schedule. You look at the travel schedule. I talked to the crack research team at CBS Sports to learn that this is the first time in modern NFL history that an NFL team has played in its home stadium in 10 regular season games. We know that they have 9 because they're the NFC team. Last year, the AFC got that extra game. And then, of course, they get to play the Chargers, as you see there in Week 17. That's at the Chargers. Well, what do you know? It's also at the Rams. They get to stay on their same sideline. They get to stay in their locker room. I think that is going to be a huge help. But then also, when you look at this schedule, they're also not traveling all that much. They only travel about 17,000 miles this season, which is about half of the mileage they traveled back in 2018. Being a West Coast team, normally you're traveling 25, 30,000 miles. Only 17,000 miles for this team this season. Now listen, that post-Thanksgiving slate is going to be very, very difficult. We saw it earlier. We talked about the Chargers. They also have the Chiefs, and they have the Broncos, and they have Vegas. And the Pack. But listen, I think that this is a team that is very, very well situated to repeat. And then you look at it, they have the best wide receiver in the entire game in Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown winner, the guy who had arguably the best receiving season of anyone that's ever played the position. Cooper Kupp. We're talking about the second most receptions, second most yards in a single season. We're talking about the Triple Crown. We're talking about how he got better in each playoff game, how he just powered up, and then, of course, winning the Super Bowl MVP. Now he has another year with Matthew Stafford. He has Allen Robinson opposite him to help take some of the load off and continue to take some of that load off. And so for those 3 reasons, I think that the LA Rams have a very, very good chance of repeating as Super Bowl champs for the first time since the 03-04 Patriots.
All right, JJ, so far you're a very good lawyer making your arguments there. The Rams do not have the best odds in the NFC. The best odds to win the Super Bowl in the NFC, I would be a terrible lawyer. NFC, the Bucs have the best odds, 8-1. Talk to me about why the Bucs can win their second Super Bowl in 3 years?
Listen, I think that having a fresh set of eyes is really important. The Bucs obviously hit that wall there in the postseason last year against the Rams, and now Bruce Arians is out, and you have Todd Bowles at the control at head coach. Does that mean that they are a better football team? Does that mean that I think that Bruce Arians is a lesser coach than Todd Bowles? No, not necessarily, but I think we all understand in every walk of life, sometimes it just helps to have another voice in there, to have a new, fresh set of eyes around. And, you can argue how fresh they are. Todd Bowles has been there as the defensive coordinator. But now Bruce Arians and all the reported rifts that he may or may not have had with Tom Brady, that's no longer there. You have Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, at least for one more year before he becomes another NFL head coach. He has control and full control of that offense. You look at the defensive side, and Larry Foote and Casey Rogers as co-defensive coordinators with Todd Bowles still calling those plays. And so I think that is all very important. And then, of course, reason number two, which is really reason number one, is Tom Brady. And you're talking about the unquestioned GOAT. You're talking about a guy, three-time MVP, four-time runner-up MVP, and what he did last season at age 44, where he was that runner-up MVP. And then finally, it's time for revenge. There were a bunch of guys last season, Amanda, whom we remember the Bucs for the first time since a Steelers team from the 70s returned all 22 starters from a Super Bowl winning team. Well, they also had to return them in a salary cap era, and that meant that a lot of those guys, Shaq Barrett, Leonard Fournette, Levante David, Donovan Smith, they took less money than they would have gotten out there on the open market in order to stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and try to get that second Super Bowl ring, that consecutive Lombardi trophy there in Tampa. And so I think that there's a lot of revenge at play, not to mention, of course, that Tom Brady absolutely wants to continue pushing that GOAT discussion even further out, making sure that no one ever comes close to challenging him at his GOAT position. So for those reasons, if I can pick another NFC team, that's why I have the Bucs as a Super Bowl contender.
I love the words here. We're going from revenge to desperation, because we're going to talk about the Packers here that have the second best odds out of teams in the NFC behind the Bucs to go ahead and win the Super Bowl. They're 11-1 odds. And you think desperation has to do with the Packers being able to win a Super Bowl?
Absolutely. And yeah, we might be splitting hairs here where you might want to say revenge for Green Bay Packers. We're beyond that. We're talking about a team that hasn't been able to get over the hump despite their 3 consecutive 13-win seasons. We're talking about a team that continues to falter in the playoffs when it matters most. Go back to that San Francisco game at home where home field advantage apparently didn't matter for Green Bay. It certainly didn't matter to the San Francisco 49ers. The year previous, when Tom Brady couldn't stop turning the football over at Lambeau Field, didn't matter. Packers couldn't get it done. The year before, of course, faltering again to the San Francisco 49ers. And so you look at this Packers team, and I see desperation because Aaron Rodgers, we don't know how much longer he's going to be around. Yes, he signed that mega deal, but frankly, with Aaron Rodgers, he could be gone next year or the next year or the next year. You just don't know what your window is with Aaron Rodgers, even if he signed that massive contract. And so there is that. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers, listen, that connection that he has with Matt LaFleur is something that is to behold. I mean, he's only thrown 13 interceptions in the past 3 years combined. He's completing 70% of his passes right now. Consecutive MVP winner. So, yeah, that means something. And then finally, you have that improved defense. You see right there who they drafted, Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker. Yeah, they lost one of the Smith brothers, but then also they're going to get Jair Alexander back and healthy. He missed nearly the entire season due to that shoulder injury. Just made him the highest paid cornerback in terms of average annual salary in NFL history. And so for those reasons, I think the Packers could get over that hump and finally get back to the Super Bowl and win.
I love that you said finally there with the Packers. I've put on my glasses for this because I need to read some things here. Let's go to the Cowboys because that's the next team you're going to make an argument for to win the Super Bowl. 1995, they haven't made it out of the divisional round in those 27 years. Forrest Gump was the best picture. Clueless was the hot release. Gangsta's Paradise and TLC's Waterfalls were the top songs, and Jerry Jones was the ripe old age of 53 at the time. JJ, why will the Cowboys win the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, Forrest Gump won Best Picture, but actually it was only the third best film from the 1994 year. Pulp Fiction, number 1, Shawshank Redemption, number 2, and then Forrest Gump. I digress to that point.
You're crazy.
However, that won't have anything to do with whether the Cowboys finally win the Super Bowl again there in Jerry World. Listen, the fact is, if you want to win games, you have to score points in the NFL. This is a Cowboys offense. They score points. They led the NFL last season in points scored. You go back to before Dak Prescott's ankle injury there at the start of the 2020 season. You know, they were third in points scored through the first 4 games of the season. You have Kellen Moore back as offensive coordinator, much like Byron Leftwich, again, until he becomes an NFL head coach. Mike McCarthy, say whatever you want to about him. Those two have figured out how to score points with this Dallas Cowboys offense. I mean, they scored 56 and 51 points in 2 of their final 3 games of the regular season, so that matters. And then, you know what else matters? Scheduling matters. And the Dallas Cowboys had to have loved when this schedule came out because, first of all, they already knew they were playing in the NFC East. It's not necessarily a cakewalk, but it's not the most difficult schedule in the world. You look, and they also play the AFC South. All right, you're going to have the Colts. You're going to have a Titans team that a lot of people are expecting to be down this year. You have the NFC North. Yes, the Packers are going to be difficult, but you also get the Lions and you get the Bears. And then consider how this schedule is built, that they get Tampa and Cincinnati to start. They also have the Rams in Week 5, but they get a lot of their tough games out of the way early. Not only do they get them out of the way early, but it prepares them for the dog days of the season. And then finally, they have a Week 9 bye. Is the bye going to come at the right time? The bye comes at the right time for every team, Amanda. But a Week 9 bye for this team, look who that next game is against. It's at Lambeau. It's the Mike McCarthy revenge game up there in Lambeau where they have a street named after him, and they get 14 days rest before they face Mike McCarthy. And then finally, the third reason, they have the best pass rusher in the NFL. That's right, I said it. All due respect to all the other pass rushers who were out there, and the Bosa brothers and Myles Garrett and the like. Listen, Micah Parsons is a dude who 1 out of every 5 times he is attempting to rush the passer, he is going to get pressure on said passer. He has a pressure rate of 21%, which is the highest rate in the next-gen stats era dating back to 2016. And he can line up anywhere. He can get pressure from wherever. He can be the off-ball linebacker. He can line up along the line of scrimmage as that traditional defensive end. Dan Quinn, who is back yet again before he becomes a head coach for a second time, can use him in any number of ways that he wishes. And he's had an entire offseason to grab a napkin and write on the back of it all these different little blitz schemes that he can use Micah Parsons in. And so for those reasons, Cowboys fans, I am telling you, since Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump robbed Quentin Tarantino of the best picture of the 1994 year that was given out in 1995, you can hoist the Lombardi Trophy.
And Micah Parsons was not even born yet. Not even for like another 4 or 5 years at that point. Jonathan Jones, we're going to talk after this. I have no idea how you know about all of these movies and what year they came out because I used our good friend Google. But thank you so much for joining us here and making phenomenal arguments, taking a look at odds from these teams in the NFC to go ahead and win the Super Bowl there. Tampa Bay has the best ones at plus 350. Behind them, Green Bay, as JJ said, a little desperation. The Rams, they can do it with all their weapons. And then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. Everything JJ laid out on the table when it comes to the Cowboys with the easiest schedule tie with the Commanders in the entire NFL. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.